In this chapter, we're going to talk about electricity. Electricity as an esthetician is really important because not only will you be using equipment that uses electricity, you will also be using devices that will help with your facials, help with skincare needs such as anti-aging, and even acne clients. This is important for an esthetician once again because understanding just the fundamental knowledge of electricity can go a long ways in safety and client care and helping you achieve skincare goals for your clients. So let's get started. In this chapter, we will talk about electricity. Electricity as an esthetician is very important for us to understand because you use it in almost all of your skincare equipment. You use it in from microdermabrasions to even some types of microneedlings to even dermaplanings and all sorts of other electrodes that you will use for stimulation for things such as even collagen regrowth. There's a lot of different equipment that you will encounter throughout your career that uses electricity. So having the basic understanding of electricity is very important for an esthetician so you can use it safely and effectively. Electricity can come in all different forms and structures, but what we need to understand is what is electricity. So electricity or electric current. Electricity can be defined as the movement of particles around an atom that creates pure energy. This energy can come in different forms, such as magnetic, thermal, and chemical. And you'll encounter some type of electrical current or electricity in one of these forms. So it's good to know that that electricity can come in these three different types. Of understand what electricity is, let's talk about electric current. A current, just like a current in a river, is a flow of electricity along a conductor in a circuit. What's a conductor? A conductor helps move the atoms along a pathway in a circuit. A circuit is where energy comes in, it goes through a conductor, and then it has the effect that you want, such as the effect of electricity, stimulation on your client. Good types of conductors. There's some that we use on a daily basis, such as metals, copper, and even water is a great conductor that helps move the atoms along into a circuit. A non-conductor would be something like rubber, silk, or wood. The electricity cannot move through these types of insulators or non-conductors. So that's why when we see electric wires, they're composed of two things. So for example, an electric wire is going to have metal threads, right? This is the electric wire that we see. That's going to be metal or copper, for example. And then it's in a sheet. It's inside of a sheet. It's insulated so that the electricity can just go one direction. So that will be rubber, and this will act as an insulator. So let's look at this a little bit more in detail. Let's say we have a battery. Battery has a positive side and a negative side. And this will be our circuit picture. What we know, the battery is a source, generator, or we can call this a source. What we know is that the energy is going to go from the negative source, let's say the light bulb. It's going to give it energy. And then from here, it's going to be carried out and go to back to the source, positive source. So it's unidirectional, goes in one direction. There are two types of electric currents. The first one is called a direct current, or DC. The other one is called an alternating current, or AC. The differences here are direct currents are constant, even flowing. They go in one direction, such as flashlights, cell phones, and even car batteries. So a flashlight, when you turn it on, it's unidirectional. It's powered by a battery. It doesn't need any other source. Now, alternating currents are rapid. They're interrupted currents, and they go in both directions, bidirectional. Um, Anything that uses an outlet is usually an alternating current. Even microdermabrasions or hair dryers, those are going to be types of alternating currents in your clinical practice. A rectifier is an apparatus that allows the alternating current to change into a direct current. For example, when you plug in an electric hair clipper into the outlet, the AC current coming out of that outlet is charging the DC system in the electric clippers, which are the batteries. The AC current goes through a rectifier in the hair clipper, charges it, and allows you to use the hair clippers once charged without it being plugged in. That is all due to a rectifier. Let's learn some vocabulary, some new words that we gotta need to know. First one is volt, or voltage, is a unit that measures the pressure or force that pushes the flow of electrons forward through a conductor, much like the water pressure that pushes the water molecules through the hose. Without pressure, neither water nor electrons would flow. Car batteries are 12 volts normal wall sockets that power your hair dryer and curling iron are 110 volts, and most air conditioners are 220 volts. A higher voltage indicates more pressure or force. So, for example, higher the voltage equals more pressure or force of electrons through a conductor. Let's talk about amps or amperes. This is the unit that measures the amount of an electrical current through a conductor. It's basically the number of electrons that are flowing through the conductor, like a water hose, which must be able to expand as the amount of water flowing through it increases. The conductor must also be large enough to transmit the amount of electrons that flow through it. Next is considered to be milliamps. This is 1,000th of an amp. Facial scalp treatments are measured in this. Next is going to be an ohm. This is a unit that measures the resistance of an electric current, or voltage needs to be greater than the resistance, or ohm, in order for electricity or electrons to travel through a conductor. Next is watt. How much electric energy is being used in 1 second. Next is kilowatt, is 1,000 watts. This is the electricity in your house is measured in kilowatts per hour. So let's look at all of this as in reference to a hose pipe. If something has low voltage And we know voltage is the flow or the pressure or the force of the electricity through a conductor. And if something has a low voltage, we know that the flow is going to be decreased or low force. If something is going to have a high voltage, we know high voltage, high flow, high force. Now, if we were to look at this and understand what it means to have amps, same thing. We're going to look at this. We're going to see low amp means low electrons, low electric current. High amp, high electrons, high electric current. Let's talk about safety. When we are working with electricity, safety is really important so that not only you but your clients are protected from all the equipment and devices that you are using. So for example, a fuse is an important thing to know. Fuse are usually seen in older devices such as old lamps that may be in your clinic or in your spa. What happens is that energy goes through a conductor. So you have energy goes through a conductor. However, if there's too much energy in here, too much electricity, too much energy, what's going to happen is that this will stop conducting and just stop by blowing a fuse. Blows a fuse. Therefore, energy back here shuts off. Nowadays, what we have is something called a circuit breaker. And we see these usually like in hair dryers and other equipments. Same concept. When there's an increase in the current or the energy flow is too high, the fuse or the circuit breaker will then stop the flow of the energy. Therefore, it will protect the client and yourself from any injury. Lastly, when it comes to safety, we must understand the concept of grounding. Grounding is important because it allows and ensures that the pathway of electricity goes from the generator, goes through the cord into the equipment and back into the source where it came from so that it does not affect you, or your client. Grounding is basically designed for safety so that you don't get injured and that your clients don't get injured and that there is a direction of where the energy is going. If you look at one of your equipments, look at the plug, and the plug will have usually two prongs. One of them is going to be the live connection, which supplies the current or the energy, the flow of energy. The other one will look a little bit different, and that's the ground connection. That completes the circuit. So for example, let's draw out a plug here, right? So if you draw out a plug, one of them is the live and the other one is the ground connection. The flow of energy or current is going to go through the live, go into the equipment, and then it will come back through the wiring system down back to the ground prong, back to where the energy came from, the source. That way it ensures that it is safe and that there is a direction of energy and that energy is not just going anywhere and hurting anyone. Other equipments also have a three prong. That is an additional ground so that it is an additional measure of safety for the flow of the current. It really doesn't matter. It's just a concept that you need to know and how you can be safe as an esthetician. So let's talk about electrotherapy. Electrotherapy is basically electrical facial treatments, and we group them together and call them electrotherapy. And these treatments are often called modalities, and each modality produces a different effect on the skin. So you need to use an electrode or a probe. This is an applicator for directing the electric current from the device to the client's skin. It is usually made up of carbon, glass, or metal. These are going to be the probes. And usually these will require 2 electrodes. 2 electrodes. One is going to be negative, and one's going to be positive. Except Tesla current. So let's talk about polarity. Indicates the negative or positive pole of an electric current. Negative or positive pole of a current. Usually, the positive one or the positive pole is called an anode. Negative pole is called a cathode. The anode is usually red, marked with the P, usually red. The negative is called a cathode, is usually black, is usually marked with a N. This is usually black. The way I remember this is by remembering the mnemonic, don't panic. Don't panic stands for positive anode and negative is cathode. Those are the 2 ways you'll kind of remember what each of those polarities will stand for. So don't panic. Let's talk about galvanic current. Galvanic current can sometimes be difficult to understand. Galvanic current. This is a constant direct current. It has both a positive and negative pole. Through this, it produces a chemical change as it passes through tissues of the body. Depending on the polarity, positive or negative, you can have different types of reactions that the galvanic current can create. So let's look at this. Effects of galvanic current. There's going to be the positive pole, and there will be the negative pole. We will call this anode. This will be called cathode. Positive pole undergoes something called cataphoresis. Cataphoresis refers to infusing a positive product, such as an acid, into the skin with the use of electrical current. So produces acidic reactions, infuses positive product into the skin. With this, closes pores, soothes nerves, decreases blood supply, contracts blood vessels, firms tissues. Whereas a negative pull is going to have an effect called anaphoresis. Anaphoresis uses something called disincrustation, and this is a form of anaphoresis. And this helps to soften, emulsify oil and hair follicles. Anaphoresis also takes or produces alkaline reactions, opens pores, stimulates nerves, increases blood supply, expands blood vessels, softens tissues. I know that that was a lot of information about galvanic current, but it really breaks down each of its powerful uses if you're using the positive pole or the negative pole. So, in review, positive pole, also called the anode, because remember, don't panic, positive anode, negative is cathode. So, let's break it down. Positive pole, which is the anode, is also called cataphoresis. It's great because it produces an acidic reaction. It's basically infusing hydrogen into the skin. It's good for infusing positive products into the skin. It closes the pore, soothes the nerves, decreases blood supply to the area. Why is that important? Because if somebody has, let's say, rosacea, you don't want more blood supply. You want to kind of decrease the blood supply there. It helps contract the blood vessels and it hardens and firms tissues. So, those are some of the good positive aspects of cataphoresis. Now, let's talk about negative pull, where it is the cathode. Another word for this is going to be anaphoresis, and this uses disincrustation. It softens or emulsifies oily blackheads that are growing into the hair follicles. It's great for these oily skins. It produces an alkaline reaction. It opens the pores so that these blackheads can breathe and get out of the skin. It helps stimulate nerves. It increases blood supply because we want more nutrition there. We want new blood coming in there so that these old infected areas can get cleaned up. It expands the blood vessels so more blood can come, and it helps softens that skin up. So those are some of the ways to think about it, and I think that'll help you kind of put everything together. With this, we can think that using negative galvanic current on skin, we should not use this on folks or patients who have broken capillaries, pustular acne. Another great thing about galvanic current is that it uses something called ionotrophesis or ionization. It's basically introducing water soluble products into the skin with the use of the electrical current. That is a great way of using energy to help with application of products. How cool is that? Let's talk about microcurrent. Talk about microcurrents. Microcurrents are great because they're pretty much safe. They use a very low level of energy. They basically use your body's natural energy impulses. Our body uses electricity to communicate with each other. So it's nice to use our own body's natural energy impulses. It uses a form of energy such as ionization. It allows for water-soluble products to penetrate into the skin much better. It allows for firming, toning, and even healing acne, the inflammation in the skin. Microcurrent can be effective in several ways, such as it improves blood and lymph circulation, it produces even an acidic and alkaline reactions, opens and even can close hair follicles and pores depending on what type of skin type you have. It increases muscle tones because it's basically stimulating the nerves in that area. It restores elasticity by bringing more blood supply, more nutrition, and more hydration to the area. It helps decrease the redness and inflammation around the skin and the problematic skin. It improves skin barrier because once again, you're increasing blood and lymph circulation. And overall, when there's more blood, there's more metabolism going on, and that way you can have better and healthier skin. This is a great instrument to use for anti-aging treatments. Let's talk about Tesla current. Tesla current is also known as the violet ray. It's a heat producing current. It has a very high rate of vibration. Basically, it oscillates the probes like that very fast. It's good for scalp and facial treatments. Note that it does not cause muscle contractions. If you're using an equipment that is causing your muscles to contract, that means that current is very deep and that is out of your scope. So be careful of questions on the test that are going to have muscle contractions and equipment that you may even purchase that may cause muscle contractions. The probes that the Tesla current will use are usually glass or metal probes. These are great ways of using a conducting device. There are a lot of good benefits of the Tesla current. It stimulates blood circulation. So remember, if you're stimulating blood circulation, you are eliminating all the junk that the body is making and allowing for absorption of better products for your clients. It increases metabolism, therefore, new blood, new metabolism, or better metabolism of the cells there. It's also even acts as a germicidal action. It's helping kill off germs or bacteria from the skin. And it relieves congestion because of all those clogged pores. So that's why Tesla current can be very important in helping you achieve your client's goals. Let's talk about light energy, lasers, and LED or light emitting diodes. There are three types of electromagnetic energy. There's visible light, invisible infrared light, and invisible ultraviolet radiation. The electromagnetic spectrum is a form of energy that travels through space in waves and has both electric and magnetic properties, and we call this the electromagnetic spectrum. Think of it as this line. In the middle, we call this visible light. It's the light that we see. Then we come over here and we call this ultraviolet radiation. And then we come on this end of the spectrum and we call this infrared light. This is going to be invisible. This is going to be invisible. Electromagnetic spectrum. This is the form of energy that travels through space in waves and has both electric and magnetic components. Has both electric and magnetic components. So visible light is electromagnetic radiation that we can see. So visible light is electromagnetic radiation that we can see. So let's talk a little bit more about this. So, for example, we have The sun. Let's talk about the electromagnetic radiation, and the source is the sun. The sun is going to emit radiation, and that's the radiation we call visible light, or that's the spectrum. Now imagine this energy coming out of the sun and going through a prism. A prism is just basically, in other words, like a glass structure that has multiple edges to it. The light comes in, goes to the prism, and then deflects out in different levels of radiation, different levels of energy. So, for example, one of them will be red, it'll be orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, and purple. And then there will also be UV radiation at one spectrum of these colors. And then there will be another type of radiation called infrared radiation at the other end of this visible light spectrum. Each of these different types of energies in this visible light spectrum carries different types of energies. The ones that we cannot see are going to be such as the infrared and the UV radiation, but each of these carry a type of an energy in this spectrum. For example, think of a stone and you throw the stone in a pond, and then it creates these ripples, these waves. From one peak to the other peak is considered to be one wavelength. So what we know is that the infrared wavelength is a longer wavelength compared to the UV radiation, which is a much shorter wavelength. It's important to discuss the differences of these wavelengths because each type of wavelengths can have a different effect on your client's skin. It could cause harm or it could be beneficial. So, for example, longer wavelengths, such as the one for infrared, are going to be lower frequency. They penetrate deeper into the systems or in the organs. They have less energy overall. Shorter wavelengths are much higher frequency, meaning they happen really, really, really fast. The shorter wavelengths have a higher frequency. What does that mean? From one wave to another, the distance is much shorter, so it's going to be much, 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 much faster or have a higher frequency. They penetrate less through the organs, such as the skin, and they overall have much more energy because they're having to go through at a higher frequency, meaning a lot more wavelengths, higher frequency, and therefore they are able to have more energy overall. But because they're short, they cannot penetrate the wall of your organs, such as your skin. They can't cross the skin barrier. So it's important to understand these different types of wavelengths so that you can educate your clients as to which are helpful and which are not. So what we have learned over time is that UV radiation is good for us, but also harmful at the same time. In small doses, UV radiation from the sun is good because it helps us with production of vitamin D. It helps us with reabsorption of calcium. However, prolonged exposure without protection can cause accelerated skin aging, cause skin cancers, and a lot of other deformities in the skin. In addition, what we've learned is that there are three major types of UV radiations. So the first one, UVA radiation, has the longest wavelength. When the wavelength is long, the frequency, meaning from one wavelength to the other, is also low. So it penetrates into the dermis because it's a longer wavelength. Longer the wavelength, it can penetrate deeper into the dermis. It damages collagen and elastin, and it can even cause skin cancers and accelerate aging. This is found mostly in tanning beds, so be careful. UVB is for burning ray. B for burning ray. UVB can cause sunburns and skin cancers. C is another type of irradiation from the sun, but is blocked by the ozone layer. If we do not have this ozone layer, UVC will literally cook the earth. So UVC for cook the earth. So remember, the ozone layer is very important to us. Let's talk about lasers. Laser is an acronym that stands for Light Amplification Stimulation Emission of Radiation. Because lasers are used to treat a variety of conditions, there are many different kinds of lasers to choose from. And so all lasers are going to work by selective photothermolysis. Photothermo. Let's break this down. Photo means light. Thermo means heat. Lysis means to break down. So basically what we're doing here is that the light that's coming from the laser is turning into heat, helping to break down particles into smaller particles. Depending on the intended use and type, lasers can remove blood vessels, disable hair follicles, even remove tattoos. Lasers work by means of a medium. So lasers are going to need something to work through, such as solid, liquid, gas, or even a semiconductor. We won't get too much in depth here because a lot of these need to be used under the supervision of a physician. Let's talk about light emitting diodes, or LEDs. Light emitting diodes are emitting light through a medium called the diode. This helps with acne, it helps with collagen production, and even with bacterial load. Different wavelengths or different colored lights that are used through the diode can affect different depths of the skin, resulting in different types of services. If you're using it for acne, anti-aging, or for even rosacea. So it's important to understand what the different lights in LED can do and what they're used for. So, what we've learned about the different types of light is that blue light is helpful for decreasing acne. Red light helps with increasing circulation and collagen and even elastin. Yellow light helps decrease swelling and inflammation. Green light is great for decreasing or improving hyperpigmentation. These are the roles of the different types of colors in the LED system. Different light colors will penetrate different layers of the skin, resulting in different effects. So it's nice to know when you're using the LED equipment. Let's talk about infrared light. Infrared lights have been used in salons and spas and heating conditioners and chemical hair treatments. It's used to help with wrinkles, even wound healing, like scars, things like that, and to help increase circulation. It's a great use because it has the longest wavelength. And remember, when you have the longest wavelength, you're able to penetrate deeper into the skin and have a better effect on the skin. So infrared light is very useful. The last one is called the intense pulse light. This is a medical device and it won't be really tested on your exam, but it's good to know, especially for those who are going into like a medical spa, working under a medical licensed professional like a doctor. The intense pulse light uses multiple colors and of different wavelengths of light. It helps with spider veins, hyperpigmentation, rosacea, and even wrinkles. Most of the time, you have to do this treatment multiple times to help see the effect. And it's a cumulative effect, meaning the more you do, the more results you see with it. It's not like a one time thing and you're done. So it's good to know, but not something that you'll be tested on. This concludes our chapter on electricity. I know that a lot of students fear this chapter because of all the electrical terms you gotta learn, and it's kind of overwhelming. But what I can tell you is that if you just understand the foundation and the basic concepts, you'll be able to answer a lot of the questions that come on the test. So go through this lecture at least twice. First, just to understand, what the major fundamentals are, and second, to really deep dive and understand what each topic is talking about and how it pertains to you being an esthetician and how you can be saved when using electricity. All right, let's get to work.